Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar, brought to you by TechStrong and Checkpoint. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of TechStrong Learning. We have an exciting presentation ahead, but first, I have just a couple of housekeeping notes to cover. First, today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion, you can rewatch it. It will be available on the DevOps.com website. You should also receive an email with a link to access that recording on demand. If you have any questions, we want you to send those in using the Q&A tab, which can be found on the right side of the screen. And if you'd like to engage with us in conversation, talk to your fellow audience members, that's where we want you to use the chat tab. We do have one quick poll, which I will launch on the screen as soon as I hand the floor over to Idan, but we do want your participation in that poll, so please do fill that out. And I'll also point your attention to the Handouts tab. Over here, you can find a copy of the slides, so if you want to download those and follow along, feel free. So on to our topic today. We'll be discussing Shift Left Done Right. And joining me is Idan Didi, COO and founder of Spectral, which was acquired by Checkpoint. So Idan, thank you so much for being here with me. I'm going to give you the floor.
Hello, everybody. Pleasure to be here. Thank you very much for the presentation. And obviously, in the end of the presentation, I'll be happy to answer every question you may have. The topic is today is the shift left done right. Hopefully, you'll find it interesting and a little bit even exciting. So let me introduce myself again, please. So I'm Idan. I'm one of the co-founders of Spectral. Spectral is a code scanner, finding anything that can lead to a security breach in your code. And as you heard earlier, so Spectral was acquired recently by Checkpoint. It's actually now part of the CloudGuard solution. CloudGuard is Checkpoint solution for everything in the cloud, and Spectral is there in order to cover everything around code scanning in terms of secret keys, token, and misconfiguration of infrastructure as a code. So again, a real pleasure to be here, and hopefully you'll find it interesting. So let's see what's on our agenda for today. So first of all, I would love to talk about a little bit about why and when do you need to shift left your security, why is that important, and how you do it right? It's you need to do it right, and a little bit about best practices and what I've been seeing or we've been seeing in the last few years happening, and we consider as a success. So let's talk a little bit about why. About the why. Why is shifting left is important? Why do we do what we do? So the SDLC, the development lifecycle, is becoming more and more automated and complex, right? I'm sure most of you know this. So engineers need to move fast. The cycle of development is becoming very, very automated, and they need to make a lot of micro decisions every day in order to build the code, the amazing code that they do, and to move things to production and to produce software. And the additional thing that is happening is everything becoming part of the code, right? Infrastructure and services, everything is becoming part of the code, and that might introduce a few risks like mistakes. Not necessarily a developer would read all the documentation, not necessarily will learn all the best practices, because again, he wants to move fast and everything is in the code, so that exposes us to a new generation of mistakes and issues and risks that we wanna make sure that we don't have. And as a security team, you now have this challenge, right? You need the developers of sprinting, developers are moving fast, and the security trying to hold them back. And the security team not necessarily trying to hold them back, but it's basically trying to make sure that everything is secured, but the power is in the hand of developers in a way. They have control on the code, they need to move fast, and they have their own goals. And that basically creates that risk that we're talking about, the risk of unsecure code and unsecure software, and that creates the cyber attacks we keep hearing about every day. Right? We hear so many things happening on a daily and weekly basis, on terrible things that happen, and basically everything starts with a small mistake. It could be a junior developer, it could be even a senior developer. Basically, anybody now can make a mistake, like always, but now it has the power of creating a huge risk for the organization, and the security team is trying to kind of handle that and see how to solve it. And that's how the term shift left security evolved. So let's talk about why and what is actually the shift left motion. So development lifecycle is built on stages, right? On steps. So you start with the planning and defining, designing, building the code, testing the code, deployment. And in order to make sure that everything is secured, you need to review it. You need to make sure that nothing unsecure is released to production. But the thing is, you want to do it early. You want to do it in the steps when it is being done. If you do it too late, if you do it in the next steps, it will cost more money, it will be more complicated to fix, and usually it's even too late because you've already been exposed. Like that, let's just give an example. Let's say I place some secret or some key in the code while I'm developing. If this was solved while I'm developing, nothing happened, everything is okay. But if it happened after the code is released, I need to replace the secret. I might need to replace it in a few systems, a lot of cost, a lot of damages to the entire organization. That's creates a lot of waste, and we don't want to do that. So what is shift left? Shift left talks about the earlier part of the development, right? So being on the right side is when the code is in production, but we want to move left. We want to move as early as possible in the development lifecycle, and that's complicated. That's what we are talking about. And what's the challenge in that, right? What's the challenge of being a shift left tool, and why is that so complicated? So you want to protect the organization while it's being code, but most of the tools that were developed in the past few years or even before were built for the right, were built for production. That means they are built to protect central processes. They are designed for security people that have control and management on the process. And when those tools, when we try to shift them to the left, when we try to shift them to the earlier stages of the development, they fail. Clunky integration, partial solutions. Basically, it's not working out because it's built for the right side of the development. It's built for the production side, built for centralistic processes, and we want to shift it. And when we want to shift it left, they just don't work because the developers or the people that are in those stages of earlier in the life cycle are working differently, right? The different tools, different mindset, different agendas, and everything is different, and those tools fail. And that's how those tools that we're talking about shift left become. And by the way, shifting left in terms of solution, it's not only development, right? It's not only security. Before the security was moving to the left, we were talking about tools like monitoring shifting left. And now it's the time of the generation of security tools need to be shifted left. And how do we solve that? How do we make the tools shift left? So the first thing we need to understand is the term developer first security. So who is on the left, right? Who is the? We're talking about the life cycle of development, and then you got the centralistic process of shifting code to production, and that's where the DevOps or the security guy. But on the left, you got the developers. You got the developers working in the CLI. They're working on GitHub. They're working on GitLab. They're working on their machines. And when we're talking about shift left security, we need to talk about developers. We need to understand what do they do, how do they do it, and how can we, as security people and security tools, are getting to be part of that process. And we want to adjust ourselves to what the developers do, where they are, and the way they do it. So let's talk a little bit about the way they do it and what's the experience. So what we understood, and I think slowly everybody in the market basically understand this. So what you need to do, you need to build an experience the developers would love. And how do you do that? What's the challenge and how do you solve it? So first of all, and I mentioned this, the mindset of the tool, the mindset that we build the tool For example, when we built Spectral, on our mind, we had the developers, first of all, not only the security. We wanted to build not a security tool that is used by developer, but actually a tool that is dedicated for developers. And that's critical, because when you have this mindset of having the developers using the tool, you have to build the entire tool in their environment, right? You need to build the tool where they are. They need to keep it on their environment. If it's operating system, if it's Docker, if it's Kubernetes, their ecosystem needs to be the place where the tool runs, and not only runs, but provide the value, right? You need to provide, let's say you found something, you found an issue, you want to give it to the developer where he sits, where he works. You cannot take him to some dashboard or on another environment. Those dashboards are also for the security people, right? The developers need to stay on their environment. You need to be involved. You need to get the tool involved in their regular processes. And that brings me to the next point. So the integration, right? The integration has to be the security tool has to be integrated to the development tool. It has to be part of those tools. So let's say the developers are working, again, simple example, popular example is GitHub. If the developer is working on GitHub, you need the security tool to be in GitHub. And the installation and the integration of the tool has to be fast, and the tool itself needs to be fast. Some of the tools that we are talking about in terms of code scanning will take them hours to scan code. Now, when you are talking about tools that need to be integrated in the development cycle, which, as I mentioned, keeps going every time during the day, and is part of the life cycle of the developer, or the workday of the developer, it has to be fast. If you're delaying the developer, it's getting annoyed. If getting annoyed, he will not use the tool. If we are not using the tool, we are wasting our time, we are wasting our energy, and the risk to the organization will happen. So the tool itself needs to be super fast, has to be so fast that the developer will not feel the pain of using it. He needs to feel the value without the pain. And that's super tricky, but that's the challenge we need to solve. And the last thing I think is important is also, so when you're working with those developers and providing them the value, and you do that fast, you need to keep you need to keep short feedback cycles, right? You need to make sure that they are getting the value. They need to understand what is the risk you are showing them. They need to understand how they fix it, and everything needs to be in real time. So you need to give them insight in real time as part of their work processes. So let me kind of summarize what you need to do. So you need to work with the developers in their natural environment. You need to provide them value, and you need to do it without the pains and without being a tool that annoys them. And that's the challenge. That's the mindset. And if you solve that, you give those developers in your organization the ability to enjoy using the tool, the amazing thing is that they are becoming the power that is actually shifting the organization to be a more secure organization. And this is something I'll talk about more in a second, but the idea is that over time we can actually shift the responsibility to those developers from the security guy. Obviously, the security guy still needs the visibility. He still needs to be in control in a way on what is happening, but slowly the power and the responsibility is shifting to the developer, to the DevOps people. And the way we do it is, if we succeeded not to harm their productivity, we enable them to keep successfully achieving their goals, they will support our goals as a security practitioner. And that's the key for success. That's the key to making the tool successful. That's making the security people successful, and actually making the organization successful. Because if you keep the productivity going in the right direction, you get the security as a bonus, and that's the important thing that we want to get. And what is happening now in the market with more and more awareness of developers to their responsibility, they want to be in charge. They want to make sure. Nobody wants to be the guy that actually made a mistake that was painful to the organization. But the thing is, they have so many tasks, so many responsibility to develop things fast, so they cannot worry about security. But when you make it easy for them, when you make it comfortable for them and not annoying, they will actually take responsibility on it, and they will actually be proud of it. They're happy to fix those issues and to make sure that they are not the one risking the organization and actually the ones bringing value and everything. So that brings me to the next slide, which I think kind of explained in the previous slide, but this just to reiterate the message. So the developers should be trusted with security, but we need to have two things. First of all, we need to have the right tools. We need to have the right tools that enable them to work comfortably, keep their productivity, stay on their work process. We need to involve the security tools within their processes and not the other way around. We cannot take the developers to the other places and then we can trust those developers, but we still need a very well-trained person on the other side, on the security side, somebody who can, one, bring those tools to the organization, second, to have this bird's eye view to everything. I think this is something that still is important. Sometimes it can be part of the development team, sometimes it can be a person from the security team, but the important thing is that that person needs to understand the developer mindset and the security mindset, and that's something that, you know, I see a lot of security people that are becoming more DevOps oriented, and I see a lot of developers become more DevOps oriented, and that's the world of DevSecOps is basically evolving, and we're seeing more and more personas with that title or without that title, but taking that responsibility, and that's a word that I think is becoming more and more popular. But even without it, the security people or the development people that are taking this responsibility has to be to have understanding, a good understanding of both worlds in order to make this process successful. And I think that's, again, another key to success. So the tools and the right people together, I think that's something that is important, and we see it pretty much in every organization that is adopting those developer-first tools. And let's talk a little bit about one of the developer-first tools, about Spectral. So let's talk a little bit about Spectral and what does it does and how we consider ourselves differently. Now, did we approach the shift left motion and being a tool for developers? So first of all, what is Spectral? What does the tool and how can it relate? So as I mentioned, we are now part of Checkpoint and part of the set of tools, the tool set that Checkpoint has for the cloud. And Spectral focuses on scanning code for secret keys, tokens, password, and anything around misconfiguration. And when I talk about misconfiguration, it's basically everything around misconfiguration, anything in the world of infrastructure as a code. And also, let's say somebody is using some kind of a logging system, we want to cover that in terms of configuration. If somebody does a mistake that can lead to a data breach, we want to be there. We want to be the tool that is helping the organization. And think about it, those developers that we talked about, they want to move fast. They don't necessarily have the time to read documentation. They don't necessarily have the time to study and read best practices on everything they're working with. And that's where we fit. We are there to make sure that everything works by the best practices, by the organization policies, by the standard in the industry. And that way we enable them actually to work fast without worry. And that's why they like using the tool. But we also build a tool for developers, and because we built it by developers. So other than me, all the founders of Spectral are developers by nature. They've been VP R&Ds or CTOs of large organizations. They wanted to build a tool they would love to use. And we also built a lot of open source tools and everything. And we always kept developer in our mind. And we wanted to build a tool that they like to use. And I think we did successfully. And some of the key things that we did, so first of all, the integration, right? So to integrate Spectral has to be easy. So what we did, to integrate Spectral, you just run 2 lines of code. That's all in the CLI. I'll also show that in a second, but basically 1 line of code to download the scanner to your premise, and then the second one to run it. That's it. That's the integration with Spectral. It literally takes you 5 minutes, and you scan your entire code base and starting to get value. And you're getting the value so fast, so the time to value is minimized in order to show the value to those developers, making sure that they're adopting that, and also the security people is getting the value. Second thing And by the way, in terms of integration, we also work with any type of tool that the developers work with. If it's GitHub, we have an application, GitLab application, etc. In terms of the code, the code scan time. So we built Spectral with Rust in order to enable it to run very, very fast. To scan the average repo with Spectral would take you literally less than a second. So by the way, we checked and we scan a Linux kernel in less than 7 seconds. So very, very fast scanning. And the idea here is that when you run Spectral as part of your CI, as a centralized process, you cannot delay it. So the scan time, because it's short, it's not annoying to developer. It's not delaying the CI, and therefore it's well adopted and comfortable to use. Obviously, there is also the matter of cost. If the CI is slow, it costs you also money. So that's another thing which is a little bit problematic if the system is slow. And that's another reason why you want a tool that works very fast in terms of scanning. Another thing that we do a little bit different, so I mentioned that in order to run Spectral, you would download it to your premise, run it on your premise, and only the metadata is sent to the cloud. And that's how you run Spectral. And that's important because you don't necessarily want to send us all your data, your sensitive data. We enable you always to keep your data, all the sensitive data on your premise, because I wouldn't trust any company with my code. And that's why I think the best approach is to keep everything on premise in the environment. And when you work with Spectral, everything stays on your premise, the code, the sensitive data, the secrets, everything. The only thing that is going to the cloud is metadata, like the name of the file or the type of the finding and the line number. So only not sensitive things. Within Spectral, and I'll show that in another slide in a second, but basically we built over 2,000 detectors based on all the best practices, all the things that our research team has found as problematic. We basically reverse engineer what type of mistakes developers may do. And then we add detectors based on that, but we also enable the users basically to build their own detectors. But on top of our detectors, we added machine learning based models to optimize the result. What we did basically took public code from GitLab, scanned it, optimized our engines to make sure that we get very low false positive. By the way, the benchmark we have is currently less than 4% false positive in our system, which I think is a very good number. And again, this relates with being a developer-friendly tool. When you get a lot of false positive, you kind of losing usage, you're losing adoption of the developer, and that's problematic. And the last thing I want to mention here, and I think maybe it's actually the most important thing, it's completely language agnostic, completely tool agnostic. So we can scan any kind of languages. And today, I don't know any company that's using less than 3 or 4 languages in their code. Usually it would be much more, especially in large companies. And that's why Spectral is completely language agnostic and completely tool agnostic. You would run Spectral in various environments, you'll still get the value. It doesn't matter what you're using, and that's important because you want to make sure that you're covered wherever you're running Spectral. Let's talk a little bit about the engine. And I mentioned earlier that it's fast, and that was a big challenge because what we did, we wanted to build inside the engine that runs that fast in your premise, the ability to, first of all, recognize any type of secrets, any type of key, any type of token. And again, we do it with the research team combined with the machine learning-based models, and together we recognize any type of secret keys token. And the second thing is misconfiguration of infrastructure as a code. So all the best practices, CIS, etc., that relate with misconfiguration of infrastructure as a code are running as part of the engine. But another thing we have there is everything around sensitive data. So if accidentally you have in the code PII, PCI, PHI, all those things shouldn't be in the code. It should be kept in other places. Private data shouldn't be in the code because the code is, people see it. And so that's also things that you can cover with Spectral, with the same engine when you run it. And the last thing that I want to mention here is the very useful ability of any user of Spectral to build his own custom detector. So let's say as a company, as a user, you somehow have something that is specific for your company and Spectral didn't think about it. Or maybe it's new and Spectral didn't cover it yet. You have the ability to bring your own detector and make sure it is not happening in the code. And we did it with OPA, Open Policy Agent, so super easy to adopt, super easy to basically enforce your own policy within the entire organization. And that's very powerful. If you are the security person, you suddenly have, first of all, visibility to your entire code base, but not only that, you can actually enforce policies in a friendly way to developers, and that's something that is very, very useful. So let's show you a little bit how it's actually look like within the platform, and hopefully it kind of, you get the feeling of how does it look like. Obviously, this is just a deck, so we'll share a link in a few slides, and you can actually experience it yourself. It's a free trial, so go ahead and see yourself that I'm not lying and everything I'm saying is true. So this is how you start. I mentioned this is easy to start, so all you need to do is 2 lines of code. One line this curl to download the scanner, and then Spectral scan in order to scan with Spectral. That's it. That's all you need to do to scan your entire code base. Literally less than 3 minutes to start and scan your code base, and this is amazing. And by the way, even if you want to scan with Spectral with different environment, the same 2 lines will be the ones you need to run with Spectral. So let's say, for example, if you want to run Spectral in your Jenkins or any other CI, you would just add these 2 lines to your CI process, and it will run Spectral as part of it. This is how it looks like after Spectral run. So you get this bird's eye view, this visibility to your entire code base. Every box here is basically a group or a team inside the organization, and with each group, you can see repos which are marked in green, that repos that we have scanned, and everything is fine there, no issues. Yellow, there is a minor issue. If it's gray, it means a repo wasn't scanned for a while. And by the way, that's also something you probably want to know about, because that means that you need to scan it. And the last thing, obviously, is the red repos are repos that, as an issue, you probably want to fix it. It's something you want to wake up because at night, and that's how we mark it. Easy to see. Once you click on it, you basically drill down. You can drill down to it. You get all the information about the issue. What is it? You have here a link to the issue. If you click on it, you go to the specific line of code outside of Spectral, obviously, because again, we don't keep your code. You go to GitHub or GitLab or wherever the code is, and you click on this to the specific line of code, and that's it. You can fix the issue. Obviously, you can see in our system the severity level. We have 3 severity levels. You can see the team. You can see if the issue is part of the code, maybe part of the documentation. By the way, we use our AI to understand the context, so we know to tell you that it is part of the code, and there probably you would want to prioritize it. And this should enable you to analyze, understand what you want to fix first, etc. And in a very easy way. We also have a very nice reporting system. This is usually for the upper level, so you probably want to get this ability to show management the issues within the organization, what are the issues you want to fix first, etc. in terms of on an eye level, but also to report, show progress over time. And obviously this is everything is can be sent automatically to your email or to other systems that you're using. Everything, by the way, has a lot of integrations with Teams, with Slack, anything that developers or security people are used to working with, we integrate with that, and I'll talk about that in a second. So in terms of the development, so the integration is, again, that 1 line of code, and once you run it, you get, so this is a PDF, so you can see the line of code. Once you see, you have the running, you basically see all the results on the CLI, and on the CLI, you're getting all the results locally. You don't necessarily need to go to the dashboard, and you can get all the results locally within seconds in your CLI or GitHub, and basically fix it also in there. We support any type of CI system today, Jenkins, GitHub Action, etc. Everything is pretty much the same. And what you will see is that when you integrate Spectral within the CI, you are getting the results in the CI and you are able to fix it within your CI. So again, it's important to enable those developers or the people that actually need to fix the issues in their natural environment. So we talked about doing that as part of the CLI, and now we are talking about doing it as part of the CI. That's where they can fix the issue, and they don't need to go into the dashboard that I showed earlier. So in the setting of Spectral, you can create your own workflow, and the idea here is to enable you to stay with your own workflow. We don't want you to change it. If you're working with, let's say, Jira, you will get the ability to assign people with the Jira ticket, with all the problems that is related with. Obviously, you map your organization. Only the person that needs to get the alert will get the alert, and only the people that needs to get visibility to the entire organization will get that visibility. And you support your workflow, and you can assign issues to specific people. You can get alerts to specific team or specific people, and everything to support your own workflow. So this is another capability of Spectral, which is very important to talk about. We don't only scan code. So the thing here, we wanted to think about those developers, wanted to make sure that where they are, we are at. So we are able, with the same engine, with the same software, can scan not only code. We added the big capability to scan Slack, Jira, Conference, all those things. You can use the same scanner, the same tool, to basically scan them and make sure there is no password, keys, tokens there is no sensitive data, and you'll get everything within the same dashboard. And that's actually super cool and super useful, and helped you to prevent any security risk. So this is basically how it will look like in terms of when you click on the red button and when you scan those issues. This is the visibility you want to get to the security person, and make sure that it's very easy to solve, and you don't necessarily need to go to the other screen and to find those issues in the other screen that I showed earlier. So I think that's covered the main things I wanted to cover. I think what's really important for us is that you'll try. That's why we enabled the free trial. So do use that. You can scan your code. You can enjoy the value of Spectral. And today we have a very special offer that Cody mentioned, and you can see on your screen. I really promote you to try that, use that, enjoy that. And hopefully after that you like it and you'll come back to us and you'll buy the product. But feel free to use our free offer that we are providing here today. And I really enjoyed this session. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And feel free to ask me questions, and let's see what we got. I think until I'll get in questions, I can jump to the poll and see if I can see the results. Maybe Cody can see the results. I cannot see them. Here it is. Okay, so let's see where are everybody in their shift left security. Just getting started. That's where we love you. No, I'm joking. So I think that's the interesting thing, right? This is just most people are just getting started, and it's a little bit complicated, and we are there to make it easy. We are there to make it easier, and we are not the only one. I think in general, shifting left your security is important thing to do. Even if you're not using Spectral, I really advise you to do that. But I think it's interesting to see how little of the companies feel that they're comfortable with what they have in terms of shifting left. I think this world is really evolving. It's really becoming a risk that everybody understands, and it is a great use case as a security person to make sure that you are solving and making sure that you are bringing value to the organization, because obviously this is a large exposure that you want to remediate. Do we have any questions?
So we have received just a couple questions, so let's take them from the top. In mitigating risk, why are Spectral's offerings advantageous?
Right. So I think the answer will probably be a couple of things. So first of all, the concept. We want to find everything. We want to find everything that can lead to a data breach. We don't want to solve only a specific use case. And that's the first thing that I think make this product very useful for the security team. You don't necessarily want to adopt a lot of tools. You probably want to get at least one tool at first stage that will cover everything that can lead to a data breach, and that's what we do. Second thing that we basically cover any technology. And again, some tools can cover 6 languages or more, but the idea here, you want to be covered. You want to make sure that we can support everything you're using. So it can be any type of technology that you're using, and also any type of programming language that you're using. I think that's critical if you want to feel covered in terms of end-to-end solution. I think that's what we are a little bit different in.
So how do you harness developers to be security experts?
Yeah, so that's a tricky one. So I think, first of all, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, developers don't want to create risk. Developers want to make sure that no risk is happening. But the thing is, they have other concerns that are in higher priority. So what you need to do is, first of all, enable them to do it in a way that is productivity, doesn't harm their productivity, in a way that they feel comfortable. I think once you do that, all you need to do is make sure they're aware of that, and I think everything else will happen. You don't need to do much. I think developers can become security experts very easily. You just need to make it comfortable for them. And by the way, I see another couple of questions here on the chat. So I see, are we scanning for Kubernetes? So yeah. So I mentioned this, and this is important. We scan anything. Because we are scanning anything, we can scan for Kubernetes, we can scan for YAML files, and we can scan for all those things. We really try to cover everything in terms of technologies, but also in terms of misconfiguration. So everything is covered. And by the way, if we don't cover something, it's probably on our roadmap for the near months. It's because of this goal that we have. I think here another question about Log4j. All right, cool. So would Spectral have caught Log4j vulnerability, or does the tool not address technical vulnerabilities like CVEs, etc.? Okay, so CVEs it's not our main focus. We focus again on other things like secret keys token and then the misconfiguration. CVEs are not part of that. However, what happened with Spectral, and I mentioned earlier that we have the ability to build your own detector. So with Log4j, it was super cool because one of our customers actually built his own detectors for Log4j and was able to detect it. And he actually shared it with us and with all the other customers of Spectral. And yes, Spectral can catch and caught Log4j and enable our customers to enjoy that. And also very fast, like a couple of days after that basically was published, we were able to cover it. And CV in general, it's something we are adding on our roadmap. Okay, and there is another question in terms of the comparison to Veracode. So I don't like talking about competitors, especially not in webinars, but obviously feel free to contact me after the session and we can show you Spectral and how it's different. But I would talk a little bit more about Spectral and less about the competitors. We focus on being friendly to developers. I think that's rare, and I think most of the tools are not like that. And I don't know any companies, especially not the large ones, that built a tool that is dedicated to developers and built it with developers in mind, and that's what we do. And just to give you one example on how you feel it, the scan time. So the scan time of Spectral is literally second, while SaaS tools like the one you mentioned, but also others, take you sometimes a minute and sometimes an hour to scan the code, and we try to be very, very quick, and again, to be very developer friendly. So I think that's one thing. The second thing is obviously what we do in terms of what we cover. So we focus on secret keys tokens, and I believe we do it in a very good way. And I think we are different in the terms. I see another question, what CI do we support? So basically we support any CI. So we obviously support Jenkins and any and GitHub Action and any popular CI, but with Spectral, and if you click on the link, you'll see that we can support any type of CI. Simple integration, just click on a few buttons, literally 2-3 minutes, and you can run it on any CI, and that's something which is critical. And actually, we know a few customers that we have that are actually using a few CIs within the same company, a few different CIs, and we support that obviously also, and you'll get everything within the same dashboard, and very, very powerful and useful. And so I hope that answered that question also.
Well, we can wait just a minute and give our audience a few more seconds to send in any more questions they might have. And in the meantime, I can give away some gift cards. How does that sound? So these are for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. Our first winner is Bernard C. Our second winner is Susan B. Our third winner is Robin G. And our fourth winner is Amir K. So to the four of you, congratulations. Keep an eye on your inbox to claim that gift card. And if you don't receive an email, just check your spam folder. And I'll also take this opportunity to remind everyone that this session was recorded. So following this webinar, you'll receive an email with a link to access the recording on demand. You can also find it living on the DevOps website at devops.com/webinars, then look in the on-demand section. So Idan, I'm not seeing any more questions. It looks like you have stumped our audience.
Thank you.
So any closing remarks you'd like to make before we close out for the day?
No, it was just a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank you for hosting me. I really invite everybody that are part of the crowd, or also people that see this recording afterwards, to ping me. Happy to answer questions, happy to provide guidance on how to use Spectral, and obviously happy to see more people use Spectral, and I'm here for that. So thank you so much for having me, and feel free to use my help in the future.
Well, Idan, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and sharing your expertise. I'd like to thank Checkpoint for sponsoring today's webinar. And my final thanks, as always, will go to you, our audience. Thank you so much for being here with us. We ask for one extra moment of your time to fill out a brief post-webinar survey that should pop up on your screen here in just a moment. But otherwise, have a great rest of your day, and we hope to see you at an upcoming TechStrong Learning webinar.